Alright, so this is going to be part 4 to What If Deku had Permeation. So with that being said, let's get a word from our sponsor. So, a few of you might have seen that before, and a few of you might be confused. Yes, we got sponsored by Beautiful Halo, so if you want to support the channel in other ways, you can go in the description, click on my link for either anime or meme merch, and you can go and buy yourself something there. Anything you buy there on the page, on their website, will support the channel. So if you're looking to do that, then go. Or you can go and do that. That'd really help me out. And yeah. So, with that being said, let's actually get into the what if. So, in the last part, we just got done with the USJ attack, and this one we're going to go over the kind of sports festival and things like that. So, this is the point in the series where Deku is getting basically his hair fibers incorporated into his clothes. This keeps it from basically falling through him when he uses his quirk, similar to Mirio, but I don't think Mirio really cares too much, and because when he doesn't really have his like clothing infused with his hair, and therefore uses that kind of shock and surprise against his enemies. That's why you kind of see him go against class 1A basically naked. It gives a shock to them, and it's kind of hard. I guess there is that kind of weird thing to fight someone naked, and it's kind of a psychological thing to do so, and that's why he does it. But Deku isn't really like that, and therefore tries to incorporate it into his normal clothes as well as his like PE uniform and things like that, so he won't have to become naked, if that makes sense. So this is where they start training for this kind of week of training, because it's not gonna be too long between the USJ attack and the sports festival. So I think in this kind of point, it's really Deku, Mirio, and Tamaki as well. I think those three would really train, because Tamaki and Mirio are closer to each other than someone like Nejire. Nejire isn't as close to the big three as the other two, so they would have been basically training separately. So this is where Deku would have to basically not really build up, because he doesn't really have enough time to really build up too much muscle, but he does have enough time to kind of see different tricks that his brother learned with his quirk. So there's gonna be a couple more I guess tricks that Deku could incorporate into his fighting style. Things like the being able to basically make your kick intangible, and then going through someone's arm and hitting them behind their arm. Like, imagine if someone was blocking a hit, then you could go and punch them. It would go through their arm that was blocking it and then hit their actual face. Something like that would be good for Deku, since no one really knows. Well, it's only one part of his body, as well as being hard for people to actually guess and where he's going to hit because of it. So things like that is really going to help him. So after this, we would get to the week of the sports festival. Obviously, Aizawa is telling the kids to try the best, because it is something that's going to affect them in the future because of their internships. It's a very important process, especially for the young heroes, and therefore everyone needs to try. So we get to the point where, or we could skip ahead, and this is where they're in that kind of changing room, and this is where they have the conversation. Todoroki is someone who at this point is a little bit troubled by the past. He's a bit insecure, as well as trying to. He has this weird obsession, you could say, about trying to surpass his father, and therefore lashes out at people around him. Those he sees as maybe ignorant or even naive. So he goes after Deku because he has a kind of a strong quirk, at least in their opinion, as well as having this kind of cheery personality would really, I guess, piss off someone like Todoroki, at least at this stage in his life, especially how he was at the beginning of the series. So he would basically tell Deku that he is going to win. He is going to beat Deku. He's going to be number one, and that he has no chance. But this is where Bakugo comes in and basically says, no, I want to beat both of you, because Bakugo is still competitive in this. So Deku just smiles and be like, sure, you could say that, but I'm actually going to win. So they all go and basically go to the stadium or the field to make their speech. I don't think Deku would have gotten first place during the entry exam because of how his quirk is and really not being able to destroy as many robots as fast as someone like Bakugo. So Bakugo would have gotten first place and therefore would have done the speech. So he does the speech typically to what he says in the anime, and the crowd therefore boos, and everyone's kind of angry at him, but it's passed by pretty quickly and they get to the first event, which is the obstacle race. So this is where everyone is going to try their best when they really shouldn't, because it doesn't really matter too much. It's more about showing off, which Deku does. It's that point where everyone gets crowded throughout, or gets crowded in the gateway, and they need to get through it somehow. So what happens is that Deku basically uses his permeation to slip through everyone by going underneath the ground, coming out the other side, and basically getting getting first place by doing so, because it's the fastest way and no one really notices him, so they can't really stop him. This is when the rest of the Class 1A would come through and Todoroki would try freezing people. It wouldn't work with Deku because he could just go in tangible and go underneath the floor. So this is what Deku's basically doing. Every now and then he goes underneath the floor to get that kind of speed boost. This is where the 0-pointers would come through, but Deku doesn't want to use One for All just yet, and therefore does not hit the robots because it's too much for him to handle just with his quirk alone. So Todoroki still takes out the first robots and continues on his way. When they get to the minefield, this is where Deku has some of the more difficult than others, because, or not others, but he has more difficulty going through this because, like I said in the other videos, when you use permeation, that part of your body basically doesn't function normally. So if he has a hand in the ground and he can't feel that hand, he can't experience any sensation on that hand. It also works with vital kind of organs that are not his blood and things like that. So he can't breathe when he is intangible, right? So every time he's in the ground he can't breathe, so he has to come up for air every now and then, and this is the same with Deku. He has to do this really precisely, basically going underneath and only really having his nose exposed, so this way the weight of his nose wouldn't trigger the bomb, or it wouldn't be like his nose, but like his head, like his nose and above his head, right? So his kind of head is peeping, kind of coming out, and this causes it to be able to breathe but also not trigger the bombs. So this is a really precise kind of thing that he's doing. So he goes up all the way up to his nose and then comes back down and repeats this process over and over, and it's a lot quicker than someone like Todoroki and Bakugo, who are just kind of jogging through it because it's a lot less, I guess, dangerous and less likely to blow up, and this causes Deku to win because, like my other what ifs, he has no obstacles to go through actually, because he could just go through everything. So it makes it a lot easier compared to someone like Todoroki, who has to actually use his brute force through something, if that makes sense. Same thing with Bakugo. So we get to the next event, and that's the cavalry battle. So I think the teams would be the same, that being Uraraka, mine, and Tokiyami on one team with Deku, and then the rest would have been the same. So with this one, it's a lot harder for things to happen to Deku because of his intangibility. But the one thing is that you can't have your headband fall out or fall on the ground, I guess, because someone else could just take it. So it's a lot harder for someone like Deku to keep that in mind. So from what we know, you gotta keep your like headband around your head or neck, and not really in other places of your body, because it'd just be unfair. So Deku would have to have a choice between what he wants to do. Does he want to be the head or one of the legs? It's more likely that it's going to be one of the heads, because even though he can, like, his quirk might not be the best, it's still better than something like gravity, and it's not going to really help with protecting others. So it's going to be better to just use it on himself, because it's not going to help someone who's going to be the head. So he's going to be the head instead of a leg, and he's going to use this to his advantage, being able to, I guess, like, since it's going to be harder to get something that's around your neck off, because you would have to untie it or get it over your head, but Deku could just make his neck intangible and then pull it through, and this could really mess up his opponents. So they would have to play more defensively, because obviously Deku has the most points and therefore is trying to, or a lot of people are trying to go after him, including Todoroki and Bakugo. So Todoroki would use his eyes to try to get Deku, but they have mine to kind of get him out of there with her kind of hover boots. So, as well as Uraraka to use her quirk to make them a little bit lighter, to make it a bit easier. After that, Bakugo would try to go for Deku, but instead gets countered, or not really countered, but interrupted by Monoma. So they spend the majority of the time trying to get each other, and Bakugo eventually does get him, but that's at the end of the cavalry battle. So Todoroki is still going after Deku and tries more and more ice. It's not really working because they're really too fast. So Ida decides to do something new, and that is his reciprocal burst. So this is a kind of special thing that he's really hasn't used before. He only is going to use this for very special occasions, but very special circumstances, so that he could finish off a job. So he uses it, and he goes so fast that it's really hard for anyone to really notice. Deku instinctively uses his intangibility and causes the headband that Todoroki was going for, that was around his head, to go to his neck, and Todoroki misses and doesn't get anything. But Tokiyami took one of his, and therefore this is where Todoroki gets third instead of second. So yeah, this is where we're going to end it. I know this is a shorter video than normal, but I want to make the Stain arc a little bit longer, and then after that it would be the heroes versus teachers, and then after that would be the movie. So with that being said, if you like this video, give it a like. If you want to support the channel, then you can comment down CS so that I know that you do. If you want to help the channel in other ways, you can go into this in the description and click on one of my links for a beautiful halo and buy something off their shop. As well as, if you like this content, please subscribe. And with that being said, it's gonna be the video, so yeah.